You explore the Hindu lifestyle in such a heartfelt and all-encompassing way. You also make a point to capture true conversations, such as when they speak about the fear that they have with the future generations, how they may go about doing the work with oxygen tanks, which could lead to things like overharvesting. But then you see the younger generation speak about how they go about it, going deeper into the water because the ocean life has evolved and moved away from where it once was. How do you both personally go about deciding which old-fashioned methods to hang on to and which modern techniques to employ when it comes to the great work you both do?
For me, when I think about my role as an activist, it's the connection between those who have worked before us and who have fought for decades for us to have more rights and more opportunities. And I think then the generation after that has a role to actually be even more ambitious and more optimistic to demand more and to demand more equality. And I hope that, we can pass on that inspiration to the generation after us. That's how I see it. And I think there's so much for us to like learn from each other as well. So this intergenerational connection is something that really stands out to me in my activism. In activism, it's so contextual that the activism you must have seen, like 7 decades ago, or maybe just a decade ago, is so different than the activism now. The platforms have changed, the tools have changed, so you have to adjust to the new opportunities that you have. Some of the things could also be traditional at the same time. I personally think that it should be the the activist decision to decide what tools and what parts they pick to make a call for action. Some people still think that it's protesting on the streets, but for some it's maybe writing a song or making a documentary, or working behind the scenes. I think it's, for me, it's all the collective work that really helps us make a difference. It I would not point to like one person or one specific thing and say this is what changed it all. Those could capture like a moment in time, but it's the collective work that has been happening for a long time that can help us drive a change at such a big scale.
For me, my occupation really relies quite a bit on technology and modern innovation in the filmmaking world. So I do find that I often have to kind of upgrade my skills and knowledge and adapt to the burgeoning technology that's coming out. So for my specific occupation, there's not a lot of kind of old-fashioned um, techniques or cultures that we're holding on to because it's just a change, always changing modern technological landscape. But I do think you touch on a really important point, which is when I started this film, I did have the question of this is an ancient culture that we're covering. Why
Mhm.
is it so important to preserve this? And how do you preserve an ancient and beloved culture, but still live in modern society? Like there's a sort of a natural tension with that. And what I really tried to show in the film is that I think the younger Henyo subjects in our film, they found a really beautiful and elegant solution to that, where the Henyo culture is this ancestral culture that's existed for hundreds of years. But they came to the culture with a very postmodern lens to it. Jungmin, our working mom, she came to the Haenyeo culture because she really wanted to find a work and an occupation that allowed her a flexible schedule to be at home with her kids also. And that's a very sort of postmodern dilemma that many women have to deal with these days. And then Sohee, our other younger character, she was a victim of digital exhaustion. She worked in a stodgy office for 12 hours a day, probably doing email for 10 hours a day, and just felt really disillusioned with working life. And then she discovered the Haenyeo occupation culture, and she realized she could have a career and be in nature and feel at peace in nature and commune with nature. And I think those are modern dilemmas that they found an ancient solution to. And then they took it one step further and they brought this ancestral culture into the modern era by taking it to social media and creating a YouTube channel to talk about this occupation and to talk about the climate change and global warming effects that they're seeing in their daily life as they're working underwater. So I did not know what the answer to that question was or what that tension would be. And then I saw this beautiful example of there's a way you can look at something older and put a new and look at it with a different lens and a different angle and put a different, more modern face on it and make it work for you in the modern day.
There's a beautiful moment in this film when someone says, when I imagine the future for my kids, I feel sad. As a mom, I want to protect my kids from harm. And it's a line that I felt very deep in my soul because it's something as a parent I think about every day, but I felt like this film also really puts it into perspective for me, such as that there's a moment early in the film and then there's a moment later in the film when it comes to when they're singing while they're rowing. It's like just, just keep rowing. So if I may ask, how do you both keep rowing? How do you both work to keep your internal navigation system focused and mentally healthy?
I think the commitment to fighting for a world where every girl can go to school and girls and women can have equal opportunities has become such an internal part of my life that I cannot imagine doing anything else. For me, it is the fact that my own story has been part of it, where girls' education was once banned when I was 11 years old and I could not go to school. And I always think about those girls who do not have those equal opportunities, and they are hoping that somebody will think about them and do something. So I have always been thinking about how can we use our platforms and the resources that we have to bring attention to the challenges that they face, but also give those platforms and those resources to them so that they can tell their story themselves and do their activism themselves as well. That has sort of become part of like how I do my activism. And I have also decided to broaden it as well. I realized that for it to become part of your life mission, you have to find more ways to really change perspectives. And that's why I started this production company, because through this I get the opportunity to work with women and young artists from around the world who can help us bring these different perspectives to the screen and help us have a more true picture of the world, where we are more exposed to the reality and get to learn about these incredible girls and women, including the Henyo.
I think that one thing that I feel so privileged to have as part of my job is that I have the freedom and the luxury to choose the subject matter that I make films about or that I make content about. I wield that responsibility with a lot of thought and with a lot of consciousness. And I choose to always work with subjects and subject matter that I think is inspiring or aspirational in some way, or focuses on some community that is built around decency and accountability and love and conscientiousness. And so that is something that makes it easy for me to keep going. It's like, yes, there's a lot of subject matters in the world that are dark, and that it's important to shine a light on those subjects as well. But for me personally, I just get a lot of inspiration profiling communities and individuals that are aspirational, that are heroic, that are doing hard things, but doing them because they feel the responsibility to do those hard things. And so that keeps me going. That's my keep rowing, is I more inspiring, positive, aspirational stories out there to tell. And it gives me energy to keep doing my job.